Hello, and in this short session I'll be looking at another technique that we use quite often in helping organisations to align their process improvement and supply chain improvement to their competitive environment. It's a technique called the Importance Performance Matrix. The fundamental starting point is recognising that whatever we do in terms of enhancing our performance, it really is important to ensure that we're aligning those efforts with the competitive advantage, the competitive benefits that come from that improvement. Quite simply, if we're making improvements in speed and yet speed's irrelevant to the customer, it's wasted effort. So, as you see here from this slide, we look at the importance of each criteria or each competitive objective, compare it with how well we're doing, and that is how we identify our improvement priorities. So let's explore that in a little bit more detail. First and foremost, we need to understand some principles that hopefully we've come across earlier. That is the notion of order winning criteria. Terry Hill of London Business School and now Oxford University developed this probably 25 years ago. His contention is that whenever you look at an order or a transaction, there's one criteria above all others that wins that order for us, which is why I call it order winning criteria. And it could well be that the reason we win our order to Walmart is because our price was consistently the lowest, and therefore we compete on cost. The lower our cost, the lower our prices, and still making a profitable margin for ourselves. So what we see here is that order winning objectives are those criteria where the better we get at our achieved performance, the more competitive benefit we get. The more we can reduce our costs, the more we can reduce our price, and that's something that customers like. Secondly, he said there are some criteria that we need to do just to be considered. Those are qualifiers. My experience working with this framework, I guess the best example I came across was in Australia, where a maintenance organisation who were really repair, maintenance and emergency recovery for a string of foundries in South Australia, that they said that they realised that they were not even getting a phone call from a customer if they were more than 110 kilometres away from the facility. And for them, the order qualifier was to be located 110 kilometres or less. So in essence, that's a qualifying level. Often we think of quality as an order qualifier. We have to at least have ISO 9001 current. We have to at least have SPC in process. We at least have to have 3.5 Sigma in our processes before we'll even be considered. It's not going to guarantee us winning the order, but if we haven't got it, we don't get it. And then there are less important objectives. These are criteria that are not particularly relevant to customers. They may be nice to have. It may be that our ability to be flexible in terms of the mix of products that we produce occasionally is of some relevance to a customer, but it's not something they're particularly bothered about, and that's a less important objective. So what this is saying is the more effort we put into increasing our flexibility, we're just not going to get any return on that effort, at least from a competitive perspective. 5, and if we go back, we can see that 5 needs to be around median industry standards. But they recognised that that was becoming more important. It was more important that they gained a price advantage over their customers. They were getting the orders because delivery performance, we see as a 1, was their strength. But they recognised their competitors were catching up on them. So the blue arrows moving to the left show that price, window quote and volume flexibility in particular were becoming more important to customers. But these are the scores that the guys came up with. Next, how well are we doing? A 9-point performance scale. Yet again, we want some subtlety, we want some gradation in our evaluation. So we're better than, same as, or worse than competitors. If we're better than, are we 1, consistently, considerably better? Number 2, consistently, clearly better. 3, consistently, marginally better. Again, much debate. Part of the process actually involved the students contacting competitors just to get a feel for what those competitors were offering. So again, We then looked at our performance against the same criteria, and here were the scores. Cost, we were around 6. We were not performing particularly well. Delivery performance, stellar performance. And then this is where the importance performance method really comes in its own, because we bring the two together into this importance performance matrix, which ranks on the y-axis our performance against competitors, and on the x-axis importance for the customers. And you'll see that there's some areas here that have been zoned off. The bottom right, urgent action. Why? Well, if something's really important for customers and we're worse than our competitors, boy, is that going to be an area where we're going to be under pressure, under threat. Top left-hand corner, excess. It's not in the least bit important to customers, but we're stellar at it. Why do we bother? Why bother being, the most responsive provider in terms of giving a response to a price inquiry when the customers really don't have that sense of urgency? And then, of course, the appropriate and improved zones speak for themselves. One of the questions you may ask is, what determines where those lines are? In essence, it's a logical stroke conceptual model. It's not a mathematical model. So it kind of makes sense that if something is relatively important and we're pretty bad, then it's urgent action. If something is fairly important for customers and we're fairly good at it, we're sitting around the maybe slight improve or appropriate area. And so for the example I gave you with third-party logistics, what we discovered, and this was fascinating to be quite frank, was that inquiry lead time, the service quality when we take orders, in other words, in essence, how polite and how thorough we were, and our ability to flex our delivery times. In other words, yes, we can get there in the afternoon. Oh, you want it in the morning? Yeah, we'll be there in the morning. These were issues that really didn't rank as, that important in the eyes of the company. But what they discovered was that it was a real opportunity. And this is the rub. Most organizations know what is important to their customers, and they tend to put some effort into it. But they don't understand the subtleties behind that. What's second, third, fourth, how well are we doing? So this organization, in fact, being a third-party logistics company, discovered that it was actually more around how well they managed the customer interaction, the inquiry lead time, the service experience that the customer had, which really posed great opportunities for improvement. And that's where they did focus their attention. So in summary, this is an important process to go through because it stimulates debate, it gets discussion. There's no definitive right answer, there's no mathematical formula, I should say. But that process of trying to identify what's important and how well are we doing really opens the eyes of the stakeholders.